Good morning, good morning, good morning.
Morning.
The morning sun is just peeking over through the window this morning.
Hello, New Zealand. How's it going?
The morning sunshine is coming right through the window this morning.
That's right. I think you're like 8 hours ahead of me. And Arnaud is also in France, right? You're mute. You're mute, Arnaud.
Sorry, the meeting started to be recorded. So
Oh,
I think Rian's in South Africa, so we have quite a diverse geolocation today.
yeah, that's great.
let's wait for a few minutes and we can start the meeting. I will just ping Aaron.
April 15th, that's tax day in the States, isn't it?
It is, but I think this year was an extension because the IRS is backed up by
Yeah, fair,
the world collapsing again. So, and you have to pay taxes forever. As in, oh, I think you're American, right? So
yeah, as an American,
you know this.
I have to file taxes in 2 different countries and make sure that all of the boxes are checked. It's a less lovely experience than I would prefer. It's exhausting. Yeah, it's exhausting.
Yeah, I can relate. You never have to stop, I guess, until eternity.
It'd be easier if I could just pay it to one country, the one I'm with. But as an American, they're like, let's be sure you've. It's like trying to donate to a charity, for example. If I donate to a New Zealand charity, I get New Zealand benefits right off. But if I donate, but it doesn't show up on the American side. If I donate to an American charity, it doesn't show up on the New Zealand side. So it's funny things like that.
Are you covered by the same treaty? Like there's a treaty that up to a certain threshold, like in European countries, you have this threshold.
It's a little bit different because it's how they calculate things. Like in New Zealand, if you own a business and you withdraw profits out of it, the company pays a certain percentage, and then you only pay 5% tax on that. But when the US sees it, they're like, you only paid 5% taxes. You need to pay up to your that larger amount. They don't count all the other taxes. So it's getting right advice from people who understand both countries' policies, because even though they say you're not supposed to double tax, the way they calculate it is so different that you have to be sure that you it meets everybody's expectation.
Yeah. Does everybody want to turn this into a discussion of taxation? We could have a new SIG tax advice. That's a needed one.
Would it be SIG tax advice or SIG tax complaint?
Oh, well, I guess that could be the sub-project for us.
Complaints department.
Yeah.
I think we can start. Okay, so hi everyone, we are April 14 and this is the working group WG Infra meeting. This meeting is run and under the code of conduct. So if you have any issue about this meeting, we can reach out the code of conduct community at conduct@kubernetes.io. So today I was hoping we look at the backlog and see what we can triage about the issue for the past milestone. I need to share my screen. Wait a minute. Oh, I will post the notes for the meeting in the chat for anyone. Oh, I have an issue with my Zoom client. I can share the screen. I don't have the credential to ask someone else to share the screen. Yeah, this. Oh, I can do this. Wait a minute. I do something like. Yeah, technical issue. I can share my screen, so I think we can skip the billing review if anyone is okay with that.
That's fine. I didn't see any abnormalities in it.
Okay. So last time we were talking about basically, I think AP hacker or someone else asked for basically access to the billing report and everything related to resource consumption about the artifact project. Is that right?
Yes, we needed to get a group created and figure out what that group needed. I think the group has been created, but we may not have the correct permissions yet. It might be useful to pair with someone who does have full access, and we try to access those things and figure out that precise list of how to access that data.
I don't know if I have full access, but I can pair with someone to see what's the issue about the access and try to basically solve the situation. We can do this async and try to have maybe a private meeting and see what I can do for you. The next subject, we have Aaron back in the call. I think. Oh, thank you for that.
Yeah, you should be able to share your screen now or no.
But the issue is I can basically share my screen because my Zoom client, I mean, I basically have a kind of a bug. I don't know what exactly, which means if you can share your screen, that would be great.
Arnold, if you'd like, you can set me to co-presenter and I can share
Okay.
my screen.
Let me try this. Oh, I'm doing this.
There you go, Happy.
All right, just a moment.
Okay, next subject was the Terraform remote state. This is on me. So basically, the idea was to set up a few GCS bucket for the different GK cluster we have. For the moment, all of the GK cluster, the big cluster and AAA are managed with Terraform, and Terraform store the state in only one bucket. So I propose we split this bucket in basically, I mean, we separate those states in different bucket, and I was supposed to push something, I mean, a script that basically create the GCS bucket, and we try to migrate the state over the time, but I really didn't have time for that so last week, but I think I'm gonna take care of that next week. Okay, next subject is, I mean, next AI was just submit a pull request. I need to find this pull request. Few minutes. So I paused the pull request. A pull request Justin Barbara submit, I think 2 weeks ago. Basically, the idea behind this pull request is just create a bunch of AWS accounts so they can be used in Pro. I think I don't really remember why they need this. But science is not on the call. I think we can skip this subject. I think, okay, next subject is temporary project for prototype cross-cloud artifact. I think this is Ryan or Ibiaka.
Yes, we requested a temporary project, and it was, we created the issue in 121, and Aaron now marked it for us for 122. So we'd really like to push this to the front so we can get the project, so we can start doing some experimenting with the migration of the infrastructure. So if there's anybody can support to get that going.
So do you need a GCP project and BVT? And I think my question is, do you need a GCP project first thing? And which service in the GCP project you need to make sure you have enough, basically, confidence to do your experiment?
I think we need to make sure we have cloud DNS access. It's kind of in the top of the ticket there. And also the ability to create clusters and run services inside of it.
Okay.
We are looking at setting up some registry replacement and artifact replacement software that it'd be good to have a place to host it while we're collaborating on it. And probably GCS and what's it called? The
GCS,
Google Container Registry and the appropriate buckets and stuff underneath. I think that if we need to structure that out a bit, we can work with you or not, or whoever's going to pick up that.
Again, I can work with you about this, but it will be really great to basically have a list of which service in the GCP project you need.
Yeah.
So let me, I would say that this needs to be near prod identical. So anything that's running in our K8s artifacts prod should be running in this to test it out. So that's
okay.
Yeah, that's GCS, GCR, GAR, any container vulnerability stuff, the ability to run the Prow instances like they mentioned, and DNS at the bare minimum.
Okay.
Arnold, would you be the one that can set it up? So we should pair with you to arrange it?
I can. I think I can. The problem is I don't have bandwidth for this week. So because I will be on vacation Friday until Monday. So we can work together about this next week.
Okay, I'll pick you up in Slack and we can arrange a meeting because we are on New Zealand time zone and you're in European.
Okay.
Find a good point for us to meet, as well as meet about the log access as well. That would be great.
And we don't really need to meet. Basically, you can basically look at the repo and submit a pull request similar to what we're doing for the Bridge cluster, because we manage the Bridge cluster with Terraform, so you can submit a project and the different services you need with Terraform, and like assign to me, I will do the review for you, and we can iterate for that.
Okay.
Do we have an example?
Sorry, what?
I haven't worked much with the new Terraform folders and stuff.
Yeah.
There are some steps to take or documentation around that.
Not exactly. Just look at the case.io repo /infra/ GCP clusters. You will see the example and you can start from there.
Example. Okay.
First, yeah.
Thanks for that.
So next section is the you, Hippie.
Thanks for that, Arnaud. We've the II group is working with the K8s Infra working group on helping create a reducing in cost for distributing Kubernetes, because we're sitting at 60 to sometimes 80K a month on distributing those images. And as we've been looking at various solutions and putting stuff together, I noticed that the SIG release and the release engineering are looking at similar processes and solutions. And I thought it would be good to find a way to consolidate those conversations into a working effort. And so part of this, this is bringing together suggestions from Stephen and Laurie that I've had directly with them, with the different infrastructure boards and the Kubernetes artifact management cap. That seems to be the overarching definition of what we're trying to do from a process, without necessarily having the implementation details there, whereas what we're working on is kind of the implementation details of that. This KEP is about 12 months old.
It's older. It's older actually. I think that it was initially drafted by Brendan and Justin Santa Barbara, and I think at the time this was near the inception of Working Group K8s Infra, and there wasn't really any SIG release review. Given that there is a point somewhere in the middle that we meet that's like there are two concerns. One is maintaining the infrastructure, and the other one is delivering the artifacts themselves onto the infrastructure. So I would see maintaining the infrastructure as being within the purview of Working Group K8s Infra, and the mechanism for delivering artifacts onto the infrastructure is within the purview of release engineering and SIG release overall. So there will be a midpoint that we meet at. I think that in your updates, you mentioned that you'd be the person on point for artifact management. So I think that first steps here, at least, is establishing ownership in a real way, to say we'll assign you the enhancement issue to own the KEP, and SIG release will help do review, as well as Working Group K8s Infra to move a real plan forward. Because I think we have a lot of people, kind of as you've summarized here, we've got a lot of people saying the same things in different places, and we should all be in the same room for it. So I would say that, at least from the delivering things onto the infrastructure, conversation should be happening in the release engineering meetings, and the creating the infrastructure conversation should be happening in Working Group K8s Infra.
One small question: are we talking with the artifacts? Are we talking binary artifacts only, or is it a mixture of binary artifacts and the GCR or the container images, basically?
Yeah, for sure. So for me, artifacts means the binary artifacts, anything that would be landing on artifacts.k8s.io, which could in the future include debs and RPMs, right? So from the SIG release side, we care about the container images, we care about the binary artifacts, and we care about the debs and RPMs. The debs and RPMs are currently not in community control. They're delivered by Ben's team at Google. So there is an opportunity to move more of that into K8s Infra. But for that to happen, we also need a plan around how to do a deb and RPM, and where we should put that. I think that where we should put it would be artifacts.k8s.io. So it becomes in scope for this entire proposal.
Where do you see the current container images being in that scope, basically? Is it separate, or is it being integrated into artifacts.k8s.io later on?
We should probably decide that sooner rather than later. What I would like to prevent for consumers is the kind of constant churn of moving from infrastructure to infrastructure. So this is a reasonably good time to choose a good name and decide where things live. We've already done one cutover from the Google Containers location over to K8s Artifacts prod for the container images. The next move should ideally be one of the last moves. But I think that having a separate endpoint like registry.k8s.io makes a lot of sense.
So I would like to help out here. I got invited to look at this and help out. And so what I would like to ask this group is if we could swarm around a doc, a Google Doc shared with everybody here, just to initially set up some of the key questions around ownership. If there are options, that we take some time to spell out the pros and cons of different options and just write them down so everybody can look at them and then decide path forward that works for everybody. Like around some of these ownership questions, and then just set a solid foundation. And then I think we can come up with the steps to work together in the two groups where there's no dependent, no blocking going on. And then there's also transparency, like if we need to have a line of ownership between release engineering and this group, then everybody knows what that line is, what it means. They can go to that doc and look at it if they forget. And that we also use one of the other community meetings to provide the discussion about progress and like what comes next. Does that seem reasonable to everybody, or what do you think?
So I would say that I think that the doc that we should swarm around is the KEP, and I'm happy for Hippie and his group to work on kind of forming, jumping through the KEP and what was written and turning into what we envision it being in the future, and then having the release engineering group do a review. I think that right now, the time that we're, at least on the SIG release side, we've got a few balls up in the air that people are also involved with, whether it be the release cadence stuff, whether it be like triage overall. And I want to make sure that we spend the right amount of time on this.
Yeah.
I think that Hippie and his team has already put together a ton of good information. If it's in a KEP, I think it's in a good place for us to thoroughly review it. So
yeah, that makes.
Yeah.
That makes. I just didn't know if there needed to be any sort of like investigative questions, that you want to actually tease out over time, brain dump, and then push into the KEP. It's really how you all prefer to work. We just go with that, I guess, in the GitHub issue and pull requests makes most sense.
Yeah, the KEP is in alpha status right now, and it has been so for, I think, as long as it's existed. The last change I think was the merge, and I know that Justin's group for cops uses artifacts.k8s.io. I was planning on figuring out how we could start using that in release engineering as well. But if it's going to change, we should discuss it. So Hippie, how about this? I will the enhancement issue, I will assign that to you and just let y'all jump on it for a while, and then we can meet up again and talk about the next steps for the proposal.
Cool. How about the project board? Is that also something that we could use for this, or what do you suggest?
For sure. I think,
yeah.
Well, I think the information is already on the project board. The problem is that it's in too many places. So I think that I agree with the whole, we should have one succinct document, right? So that artifact management KEP is already listed on the board. So I think we want one succinct document so people, because essentially what's been happening is people have been filing the same issue across multiple years about these things. And
I remember now.
Yeah. And if they had a KEP to look at, it'd be like, go look at the KEP. So I think we work on cleaning up that KEP, SIG release and release engineering do a thorough review of that, and then we plan timeline and the work.
If I recall correctly, sorry, I was just if I recall correctly, there were you had collected the related issues in that board, maybe around the holiday break time, and then there were 3 KEPs, right, that were relevant, and I think you were going to consolidate into this one. Is that
so
correct? Okay.
Whoever has the screen, can you drop over to the board again?
Be that artifacts management board.
SIG release.
It's it's the SIG release board.
Oh
yeah,
no, it's the
artifacts.
Yeah, this is right.
Right. Yeah, this one.
So so looking at all 3 of these, right? I think we want to be a little clearer on the language around artifact management. I honestly opened these placeholder enhancement issues for the sake of having a number to assign to the KEP when we change them to the new versions. So these issues are pretty sparse right now. I think we want to be a little bit clearer on the language of artifact management, because here we're explicitly talking about the artifact management infrastructure and not necessarily the day-to-day management of the artifacts for sub-projects and for maybe core Kubernetes, right? The publishing packages thing is like, because I see this as like, I see the artifact management one as a umbrella KEP, as it were, right? Where publishing packages and image promotion are aspects of it, but they are big enough to be their own KEPs, right? So I see a bunch of cross-linking happening here with the infrastructure, the artifact management infrastructure KEP being kind of the starting place. From the image promotion perspective, we have already delivered, and Linus is on the call, has already delivered that artifact, that image promotion functionality. The next piece that I would like to do, at least from the day-to-day management side, is consolidate the ability to do image promotion as well as the ability to do artifact promotion. So if you look in SIG release, sorry, the K release repo, there is a tool called kpromo. It is incomplete today, but kpromo would serve to consolidate the work that Justin did for file promotion, as well as the work that Linus did for image promotion. Now, I'm also, sorry, I linked it in the Zoom chat, which I should have put in the meeting notes, which I will do in a second. But the idea with kpromo is that like we kind of want to, we've been doing some gardening work essentially on K release and pulling out some of the things that made sense as separate libraries into different repos. So we're kind of still working through this refactoring of the repo, but the end state would be having a tool that we could use for both container image promotion as well as file promotion.
Where do you see the ownership on that?
So yeah, so that day-to-day management piece, I would say that is release engineering.
Okay.
And I will, yeah, it's release engineering, but while I'm doing some gardening, I want to think about the way I want to plant, certain things, but I would welcome help on those tools as well.
Maybe we have a call to action on that as part of starting to communicate this plan a little more broadly. Maybe that's one of the first little bullet points that we share.
So I think that I would like to see more about the infrastructure first. I would like to see the plan around the infrastructure, because I think that the day-to-day management aspect is an implementation detail that is not necessarily important to everyone just yet.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of related to this topic, we have this CSI proxy under Kubernetes CSI, and we generate binary. And right now, it can be pushed to using the cloud build to push to release, kind of in a not release, staging. Repo. Right.
I owe a response. There if you're the one who pinged me on SIG release.
So you mean you can help to push it to release repo?
Yeah, so it essentially, the functionality that you want does not exist today. For anyone who has, as far as I know, someone please correct me if I'm wrong. As far as I know, anyone who has a staging repository today that only uses it or explicitly uses it for binary artifacts, there is not an automated process to bring those binary artifacts from a staging place to a production place. The production place would be artifacts.k8s.io. So what someone could do, if they had a staging project, not every project has a staging project for GCS, right? What they could do is do something similar to what COPS is doing and kind of go through that file promotion process. But I would like the file promotion process to be cleaned up. People actually have to understand how to do the file promotion process, and it's not as clear as it could be today. Justin would have the best details. This is also an issue that we run into with, for the core releases, we have a K8s artifacts CNI, I think, or staging CNI, as well as a CRI tools one. Because we produce the CNI plugins and CRI tools as part of the core packages for a Kubernetes release, we needed separate, we needed like a production place to pull those from as well. So I think that the way that we are doing it today, at least for SIG release and release engineering, would go away. The way that Justin is doing it for COPS right now would sort of move towards being the canonical way to do it. But we need to thumb through the documentation that exists today, and then be really good about notifying people about how to do it. It is not easy or clear to do today as compared to the image promotion process.
Okay, so what we can do for now, like waiting for some documentation, and also do we have the permission to promote, or there's some people need to like
Yeah, so you would
do that process?
Yeah, so the way that it works right now, if you were to do it the release engineering way, is you would get a separate prod-like bucket to take and then you would get permissions for that prod-like bucket. The ideal way is for them all to live in a prod-like bucket that is a you have a subdirectory, a CSI subdirectory to that bucket, and you wouldn't have permissions to prod, but you would have permissions to approve the manifests for your file promotion.
Okay, so what's the
So
solution?
what can we do today, right? What can we do? So what the immediate fix today, I think, would be to get a near prod bucket and call it a day, and get permissions to do that. It's messier, but it unblocks you right now.
Okay, then who I can contact with to do this?
Looking on the call, who the best person is.
The best person would be Justin.
It's
because
Justin.
artifact.k8s.io don't live on the community infra. That's the issue we have right now. So
wait,
yeah,
does it not really?
I mean, it's just a load balancer redirecting to the GCS bucket, but the load balancer doesn't live in the K8s Infra. I mean, until now, I think it's not live in K8s Infra. So we're trying to find a way to do that, but right now the best person will be Justin Barbara.
So
I just ping him.
That is so. I would back up a second. If that's
the best way to do that is just basically if you can open an issue on Kubernetes K8s.io repo and assign it to Justin and Aaron and me, and we can take a look at what we can do, or basically how we can improve the current situation.
Let me also, I can link some of the SIG release stuff that we had done in the past. And if you want to go that route, you could. Yeah, give me a second. I'll dig those up.
Sure. Thank you.
Okay.
So I wonder if y'all want or need help setting up some of the writing, because I'm happy to help if you want it. We could go through the issues in that project board and get through a lot of those quite quickly, I think, just by focusing on it, and then use those cards to develop the KEP, taking the bits and pieces and updating them based on the current vision. And
I think I like that, but as a follow-up step, maybe I think that a lot of those issues include cruft from the past that's maybe not true anymore. So I would love to see what the current vision for folks that are actually working in K8s Infra today is, before we start digging up the past too much. And
well, yeah, that's that would be my point.
Okay. Yeah. But let me
Sorry.
not speak for Hippie. Let me not speak for Hippie because Hippie is leading this.
I think we're missing some of the key voices on this call, and I wonder if it's not good to actually just find a time that works specifically for this particular sub. Well, it's a sub project. It's a pretty beefy thing that maybe we can go through that board and clean that up with Laurie's help and the right people on the call to get us headed in the right direction.
Yeah, exactly. Like maybe even Steven, you know what that old crud is, but maybe the other folks in this group do. Yeah, right. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I did interrupt you. I'm sorry for cutting you off earlier. But in any case, just separating that stuff in that session, and then everybody can learn and get a shared context from that conversation about how this idea evolved from long ago, and that can be useful. And then we emerge with an updated set of things, probably that would then just land in the KEP itself. And all those issues might be either reconfigured into like to-dos based on that KEP, or that you close them.
So I have an idea, or I've had an idea for a while now, that I'm not ready to speak publicly about, but this moves it in the right direction. So let's talk afterwards.
Is it possible?
Are you going to like put a
Is it possible to have a? I'm sorry, but is it possible to have a separate meetings for this subject? Because I feel like there's a lot.
Yeah,
I think there's a lot to unpack. There's a lot to clarify, and my personal thought is basically we should align. Basically, we should improve the
task
KEP.
force of something.
Yeah.
I mean, so that I think that's what we're heading towards, and I'm happy to do. I'm happy to.
To be honest, I would be. I mean, if we could, I mean, if EP is okay, you can just basically build a new community group, a new community group at the CNCF level, and you just gather people and just to work on subject, because there's a lot to talk about. And
so you have unfurled the idea that I was not talking. The idea would be, well, I mean, since we're talking,
I want to move forward about this right now, and basically we just 90 minutes until the end of the meeting. So my idea, and that's just my idea about this subject, we should just basically build a new community group at the end. But the first thing to do is just to maybe improve the KEP to align with the ultimate goal, like improve costs and migrate things.
From my side, we spend a lot of time looking through all the information gathering, and it is everywhere. So what we could do is start summarizing what we know, and also there's a lot of work that we already started, and reach out with different stakeholders about possible solutions, and we'll summarize all of that. And once we have a good summary, then we call that meeting, get Laurie, get Steven, and everybody that have a stake in this, help us to flesh out where we need to go with that.
Okay. We say the same thing. So we should gather the information and summarizing in the KEP.
I raise a hand, we'll gather the information.
Yeah.
All right.
So it looks like you have a few things. So we talked earlier about the central place for this to be communicated. Well, two central places, this working group and the release engineering group. Are you now suggesting that we actually move those conversations into that CNCF community discussion, or are they three? I'm trying to clarify what you're all saying.
No. Okay. So Arno is saying just to start that we want to move on to the next topic for the meeting, at least. I think that we have identified the people who are interested in doing the next thing. And I think one of the next things will be to clean up the KEP and get all of those people who are interested to clean up the KEP together. So I think that now that we know all of those people, I'll open up a Slack thread and we'll start jamming. And we can
also do that.
A Slack thread at CNCF or
no, I'm in Kubernetes.
All right. All right.
I mean, basically, maybe the idea of having a community group at the sensor level is not something we want to do right now, but we should have a place where we can gather. I mean, everyone can gather and basically collect those information and talk about this, because basically in just one meeting we can talk about everything.
Well, right. Well, I won't join any meeting where we talk about everything. I'll leave, but because that sounds terrible. But my suggestion here is, if we're going to involve a lot of stakeholders, it's very easy and saves us a lot of time if we just come up with a very lightweight communications plan, because not everybody will read the Slack channel, right? You know this. So, you know, just like a regular cadence of updates based on the highlights, how things are progressing, and then they have it. And we keep it very short, sweet, to the point. But I think by doing that, we will save ourselves a lot of potential things that are not nice happening. So
I agree. I'm saying that I think that we have enough people to start a Slack thread to talk about the next step.
Yeah.
For everyone. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just vocalizing how I imagine this. It's just another aspect of the overall plan. Just
so
provided as an option.
Okay, so action item about this will be create is Stephen creating a Slack?
I'll add an action item so you can move on.
Okay.
Cool.
I'm going to cover Berno's topic really quick. It's just to centralize. We probably need to get together with the right people to make sure we have access to the BigQuery and the reports that we go through. I'm still not certain how to access those. I'd love to pair with someone who has been part of generating those, so that we can ensure that we have the correct access to understand the cost structure underpinning the reports, so that we can ensure that this work we're doing does reduce the cost and redistribute it across all of the different cloud vendors that are donating credits to the CNCF.
Can we do this async, like maybe? Also, if you, I mean, yeah, there's an issue about this already. I think Aaron mentioned that in the Slack channel thread, like there's basically data schedule is kind of complicated about permission. So I think Aaron is still investigating those things, but I feel like this can be do async. I can maybe help you see where to gather the information.
We can try to do it asynchronous. I've found that for some of these items, because we don't know what we don't know, like we can't access it. So when there's someone who has access and you try to access it as someone who doesn't have, we can actually identify the permissions. So in these instances, in identifying permissions, historically, we have had two people pairing together to identify what is lacking. Another way that can be done is for you to create a sub account or a service account and try to go through and access the reports and identify them manually that way. But we haven't done that in the past, but I'm open to that.
I think the first thing we should basically do right now is identify the permission you need. That's the first thing to do. Yeah, I think for basically, I think you have a separate Google group for that. So the first thing to do is just identify the permission you need, and we can iterate from that.
We now have the permissions. We've signed the PII information as I access it, so we should be good to go ahead and grant that whenever we figure out what those permissions are.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. That's us.
Just ping me next week about this. I'll take a look. And that's me. Supposed to be 30 minutes. So we can either end the meeting right now or go over the board for basically milestone planification. Because I feel like in 10 minutes, we can go over the whole board for the next milestone. because there's a lot to discuss. There's a lot to update. So I feel like I can give you back your 10 minutes and we can just do this in the next meeting. I don't see +1 or -1.
I have no strong opinion. That's the end of the day here, so for me, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay, I see a +1 for Christoph, and that's enough for me.
Thank you, everybody.
All right, see you later.
Thanks.
See you,
Hey,
folks.
Thanks, everybody. Cheers.
See you.